All right, welcome back to Donna's Tips and Tricks. Today we are going to talk about Project Turn-In. We are going to discuss exporting UV and DM maps, showing collision, exporting max files, FBX files, and STL files, showing how we can lay out wireframes, and then creating a presentation sheet in Photoshop so you can take it home and hang it on your fridge and have your mama be so proud. So let's get started. Today we're going to be using this car. This car, if you hit, you can see it's named convertible, and it's going to be really important because everything we do will be based off of that same exact title. Okay, so now we've got convertible here. If you hit H, it brings up the select from scene, and you can see not only do we have convertible, we also have UCX underscore convertible underscore 00. Now that's our collision, as you know from the collision video. If you haven't learned about collision yet, you can look that up. I'm going to go ahead and select all of these, click OK, and now I'm going to hit, let's see, hide unselected. So this is our collision for the car, much simplified version. Now each piece of collision has its own function. So this is the windshield, the body, and each one of these has its own wheel. So I'm going to unhide all. All right, back to the car. So like I was saying, so we have the wheels, we've got all this stuff ready to go, and each one of these. We also have our own set of bones. Okay, so we've got, under our hierarchy, we've got the root bone as well as our four wheels. Now, if you hit F in this particular scene, you'll notice that the root bone is not facing front. It is facing to the right, because when we export for Unreal, especially vehicles, we need to export everything so X, positive X, is the direction that they're facing. All of the bones, and you can see they're all on their own separate layer, so I'm going to hide the collision and the mesh, and you can see all of the bones are actually facing positive X, and each of their pivot points is snapped to the where is it, center or midpoint vertex of each wheel. So if I unhide the wheels, oh, that's collision. There. You can actually see, I'm going to go hit F3 for wireframe. You'll be able to see the bone. You can't even see it, but the angle is perfect. So everything is in the exact right direction, facing the right way, etc., etc. Okay, so you have finished your model. You're done. You've got everything ready to go. What do you do now? Well, in order to export this out so that we can put it in the Crooms Asset Library, which is the goal for all of the 3D modeling we do. All the modeling we do, the idea is we finish it so that we can take it in the future and put it into a game. So we never want to have to reinvent the wheel if we don't have to. So this car is ready to go in anybody's game whenever they want it. So in order to do that, I want to make sure it's all ready to go. So all the parts are connected. You notice if I click on one thing and hit W, the entire car would move. It is rigged to this whole skeleton, so etc., etc. Now the skeleton, the root bone here is positioned at 000 facing positive X. But if it was just a static mesh, the pivot point of the car should probably be at the center of mass at 000. Now that's, once again, I like to have the ground as 000, and you'll notice that the tires actually sit flush to the ground. And if I hit front, I look at the left side, and if I hit top, the car's facing left, and I hit L, I'm actually looking at the rear of the car, like that. So let's start exporting. So what we need to do is we need to export out all of this stuff. So first things first, we need to export the FBX file. Okay, so I'm going to unhide all. Yes, I'm going to unhide all layers. So I want to grab, in this case, I'm going to grab all of the collision, and I could have done this with the H, select from scene. And then I'm going to actually export this out. File, export. Now we've already talked about how to export out as FBX, so I'm not going to go into that extensively. But let's go ahead and start a new folder just so we know what we're looking at. And we'll call it convertible final. There. Let's call it turn in. Okay, cool. Convertible turn in, and this will be convertible. convertible. Now we already talked about, like I said, how to export that. Because we're exporting the collision as well as the bones itself, we need to make sure smoothing groups. I have this set as a preference, so Unreal 4, you can set this up yourself. But smoothing groups, tangents, and binormals, triangulate and preserve edge orientation. I go ahead and include animation even though there isn't any in this particular case, and I bake it because might as well. I embed the media, which is okay, and then I hit OK. Now if I hit M for material and bring my material window in, you'll actually see that I've got quite a few materials, including the concept art. So we need to do that. Let's go ahead and put all the other files we need. So when we export out here, we need to actually export out our UV map. So go to here, unwrap. I have the skin modifier on there, so obviously it's already there. But so this is my UV, okay? So you can see it. I've prioritized this so that the interior of the car is much larger than it would usually be, because this would be a car that you would actually drive around inside. So we want to make sure we have high enough resolution on the inside, so that it's going to look nice. All right. I noticed this earlier, and I don't know what that is. Anyway, I'll look at it later. So the point is, we've got this. We need to export it. So File, we go to Tools, Render UVW Template, and we always render out the template at 2048 by 2048. So 2048 by 2048, Render UV Template. It flashes up. We grab it, grab this button here, Save, and we are going to go up to a convertible turn-in, and this is going to be called convertible underscore UV, and it's going to be a PNG file. Convertible UV PNG, save, and it should be 24-bit, so click OK. That's done. Good. Great. We close that, and that's ready to go. Now we need to render this this scene. What we want is a nice perspective view, so hit P for perspective. Hit Shift F to show your safe frames. You can see where it's going to render. And I'm going to try and zoom in, and I want to fill up as much area as I can. Notice I use the zoom tool down here, and I want to have it so that it fills up just the right amount. Okay? Great. Now, if I go into list, I can make sure that the collision is not going to render. So I can do this. And then I'll turn that off. Okay, so now when I hit render, F9, it renders out like this, and you notice it's perfectly fit in there. And I can just go save image, and I'm going to call this convertible TN1. Right? And once again, it's a PNG already, so I hit save. Okay. Now, while I have this material set, or while I have this image set, I'm going to actually change the material and show the checker map. So I hit M, grab my checker map that I was using when I was actually modeling, and render it again, F9. There we go. Checker map's ready. Save it. I'm going to call it convertible TN2. Save. Okay. Perfect. Now, from the top view, I'm going to do the same thing. Make sure that it fits perfectly in the box. Render again. Save as convertible TN3. Save. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my materials, grab my car, put it back on convertible, and render again. Save this. Convertible TN4. TN stands for thumbnail. All right, cool. Done. Now that we've done that, we've shown our checker map, and we can actually show that in a couple different ways. But this is a good start, so that's ready to go. Now what we need to do is we need to have, so we've got our main image like this. We've got our checker map set up. Let's go ahead and show the back side of the car now to just get a nice rear image. Make sure I'm on perspective. like that. Looks good. Fill it in. Make sure it looks good. Render it. F9. Cool. Save that. What are we up to? 5? Yep. TN5. Great. Okay. Cool. So we've got a front view, a back view, we've got a top, we've got checker maps. We're in pretty good shape. Now we need to look at the collision. So let's go ahead. I'm going to hide what I've got. Hide selection. Oops. Hide selection. Okay, so now I've just got my collision. Now before I couldn't show, I wasn't rendering collision, but this time I am. And I'm going to select all of it, but not the bones. So actually I'm just going to grab those and that, and that. So I've got all 6 pieces of collision. That's 144 tries. Now if I hit M, I'm going to grab this black material. All it is just like basic black, and you can see it by double clicking on it. It's just a basic diffuse that's all the way black. Alright, now I'm going to drag that on here, and I'm going to assign it to selection because I've got a whole bunch of objects. And now this time I'm going to hit F10. Now this is how we're going to show the frame, or the wireframe. So under renderer you can force wireframe. Now I like a wire thickness of 2, but you can play with this. But when we render it, you're not going to see anything because the background's black and what you just rendered was black. So I'm going to save it anyway. TN6. Save. Okay. I'm going to go into that folder itself, convertible. I need to go higher to my desktop. Turn in. There we go. Now convertible TN6. This would be our collision. So this is our collision view. You can see here that you can actually see the different collision boxes. So that's great. So we're still doing good. Now the next thing we need to do is for our wireframe view. Let's go ahead and force wireframe here. Let's close this. We're going to leave the wireframe up. Unhide all. Select this. Hit M. Drag this onto our convertible. Turn off the layer with collision. So I don't want to render that. And I'm going to render it again. Okay, save this as TN7. You'll notice we get a lot of thumbnails. All right, save. Okay. Okay, so cool. I think we have all the pieces we need. So now what we're going to do is go into Photoshop, and assuming you've already rendered out your actual image, this would be my diffuse map, and this was partly created in a way that will make it so that you can quickly change the color. So you can change the paint color, and the shading is always consistent. So if we want a blue car, we just go in and change the background color to blue, and then we have a blue car. It actually works out really well. So I'm going to turn off the UV here, export this as file, save for web. Now I'm going to export this at 1024 by 1024, but you could always do maybe 512. I think 512, especially because this is intended to be low quality so that we can render it quickly. So I'm going to hit save, and I need to go up to my desktop, convertible turn in, and we're going to call this convertible DM for diffuse map. Save. Now I made sure that my UV was off there. So far we have all of this stuff, and now I'm going to create a file. We're going to go to the project name. So image size. We are going to create this image, okay? 2200 by 1700. So I'm going to go here and file new. So we said 2200. Oh wait, I think I actually have a preview. A 3DS presentation. I use 2200 by 1700 pixels, 300 pixels per inch, and I click OK. So now I've got a new file, a new image background that is ready to go. So from here I start putting in my art. Convertible TN1. Right. There we go. I can rescale this. I want to hold shift while I change it so it doesn't distort. I need to put a layer of text. So I need to hit enter. I want to create a new layer of text. type in my period number. So let's say you're in period 3, and then your last name. And then you can use whatever fun font you want. That's kind of up to you. But make sure it's in the corner, the top left corner. All right. And then we start bringing in more of our stuff. So I'm going to bring in my diffuse map next. All right. And then hit enter. And before I adjust it, I'm going to bring in my UV. I'm going to hit enter. Now, these two files together, I want to keep them together. So I'm actually going to create a folder, and I'm going to grab both of them and drag them into the folder. I'm going to just call this DM for now. Now I can select this, and I can hold shift while I scale it, and I can scale this so that you can see the UV on top of the diffuse map. Okay, hit enter, drag this down here, so now the car is actually over it because it's on a higher layer. Like that. There. So if we cover up a little bit of the diffuse map, it's not a huge deal. We may or may not do that. Now, we're going to do the same thing with the rear view. So I'm going to bring in the rear view, hit enter. I'm also going to bring in the wireframe view, hit enter. Now, because these things are perfectly sized and arranged together, I can also put them in a folder. Call it rear view. Grab both of these, drag them in there, and move that down. And since I have that selected, I can grab it. I can move it around, and I can scale it so it fits down here. Now, the rear view is not going to be nearly as important as the front view, so it can be smaller. And this is, every project you do is going to be slightly different. So you'll adjust this accordingly. I'm going to shrink that maybe a little more. Enter. Make the thumbnail a little bigger. I can also take this, hit Control T, and I can flip it horizontally if I want. That way it fits a little better. I can take this, hit enter there, and hit the rear view. I want to move that over there. There. And TN1. Good enough. Rear view, I'm going to move that higher. There. Cool. So now you can actually see the wireframe view of the model over the model itself and the rear view. So that's pretty cool. Now the final thing I need to put in there is my collision. Just drag that in, hit enter, resize it so it fits. Once again, resizing this, holding shift. It's hard to see in Photoshop, I find. But it's not that big of a deal. You'll be able to see it fine when you render it. So that's there. And then the final thing we need to do is add in our checker map. This once again doesn't need to be as big as everything else. We can shrink it and maybe even fit it up there. If we don't actually shrink it, edit. Actually, I'm going to just delete that. Okay, I'm going to drag this and this. So I'm going to the convertible, enter, and I'm going to drag the convertible colored version in. I'm going to make those two their own folder. I'm going to call it top view. Take these two, drag them in here, and then I can grab that, shrink the whole thing, and put it up here. Now, from here, what I can do is, in order to show one of these, all I need to do is select the top layer, grab my eraser, make sure I have the top layer. Oops. Rasterize the layer. Eraser. Good. Okay, undo. So now, I don't know why I can't see my brush, but I'm just going to click somewhere in the middle, hold shift, and erase. And now I can do this, and I'm just erasing the top half of that car so you can see that. So there you go. And that's done. And there you go. Now, once again, every single project you do will be slightly different. You'll have to lay it out in a different way. But what you need is you need a checker map view. You need the diffuse with the UV on top of it. You need the actual model, preferably large and obvious. And then you need a secondary view of your model with a wireframe and the collision. So that's all of it. From here, you go to File, Save for Web. It's already there. It's already the right size we want. It'll take a little second. You want to make sure you're saving this as a PNG 24 with transparency included. It should be transparent. So when we hit Save, we're actually going to call this your period, which I said 3 just because I made it up. Done, caps lock, 3 underscore Donnan underscore project name. Whatever the project name is what you'll do. Hit save. It'll think about it for a while, and then it is done. So that means we can take this file, this PSD, save as desktop, convertible, turn in. Same thing. I'm going to call this 3 Donnan underscore project name save. All right, and then we have our diffuse map here, file, save as, desktop, turn in. This is convertible DM and it's a PSD, and you can leave this on or off, it doesn't matter. And we can close this. No. And then this is my old one, so we don't need that either. So then you've got almost everything done. You could also add so this is the basic stuff you need. You could also add the concept art. There's only one last final piece you need to add, and that is the info file. So the info file is all the information that goes along with this. So I actually have it here, 3D tips and tricks, convertible. So I already did all this information, but I'll go ahead and copy it, paste it. So it's called convertible underscore info. It's a text document, and in it you will find, and this is what you're going to need, and you can download this off of the files that are in the comments on the video. And it has asset name, what it is, who made it, when did they make it, what year they graduate, what they created it with, so 3ds 2014 Service Pack 3, how many objects there are. So in this case, it's just one object, convertible, but there's all these sub-objects. Steering wheel is a sub-object, seats, dash, and tires are all sub-objects. How many tries there are, so 330, and you know you can find that up here. Oh, at the moment I have 340 because of the collision. 330 collision, how many polys are in that, and then all the names and what they relate to. So the main body, windshield, front left tire, all this. Suggested texture size, and I included the 512 and the FBX. And then how many bones, if there is any. And then any animation breakdown. So if you've got a walk cycle that's framed 1 through 30, you put that. So it'd be like 1 through 30, right foot. 31 through 60 would be like jump prep. 61 through 90 would be flying or something like that. And then any notes. So I mentioned that the car is skinned to the bones in the max file. The UV prioritizes the interior of the car. All of this stuff you can read on your own. Most of it we walked through already. And that's it. So all of this is what you need. You have the FBX. You need to make sure you insert the file itself, which is convertible. So you're going to save the file in there. You have the project name. And that's all of the files you need to turn something in. And that's everything you did. And now you can take this and turn it in. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you feel comfortable with that. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And I will see you next time.